Well, Danielle doesn't live that close here, and she checked with her husband, and he said it was not out.
Yeah.
That they were fine, so.
That should be on the news. Yeah, it's like.
All the storms and everything, we've been fine, you know,
Yeah, well.
regular days until we have the power outage.
Did everybody lose their power last week?
Good, thank you.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Ready to roll.
School board meeting will now come to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none? Okay. Next, we have public announcements. August 12th through the 16th, Staff Professional Development Day. August the 15th, open house at MES St. Clair Walker and the high school. August the 19th, first day of school. September the 9th, school board regular meeting here at St. Clair Walker at 6:30 p.m. All right, next we have public comment.
Mr. Michael Ness, Harmony Village. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have board members, committee reports or comments. Tiffany?
Nothing new for me at this time.
Okay, Dr. Barnett?
The Chesapeake Bay Governor's School Executive Committee met to approve some revisions to the budget. Other than that, nothing to report.
Okay.
Bridging Communities hired a new diesel tech instructor.
Okay.
I attended the regional special ed meeting, and everything is going well, except they lost one teacher, so they're gonna try and be creative and figure that out before it's time.
And I have nothing at this time. Okay, we have some action items.
Yes. The first is a revision on second read. It's actually a regulation that's updated. It's IIBEA-R and GAB-R. There have been no changes or updates since the first read of this policy last month, and it was a regulation we were updating to be in line with the policy.
Okay, so this is on second reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moving proper second and question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Okay. Next we have school fees.
School fees, so fees are updated and approved annually. They'll note and just point out that there were a few increases this year due to increased costs and program demands. The activity fee at the elementary school is going from 15 to 20, and K-Kids is going from 2 to 5. And then at the middle school, TSA is going from 15 to 20, and at the high school, FBLA has changed from 10 to 14. So those are the only changes for the year.
Okay. Okay, could I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moving proper second and question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. All right. Request for transfer of property.
Mr. Chair, I spoke to Don Harris today, and he agrees that there's no rush for us to consider this item. And since I personally, as one board member, would like more information, I move we table this until the September meeting of our board.
Okay. We have the motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Move proper second. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is so carried. All right. Next we have is information items. Dr. Bishop.
Yes, we've had a very good week last week in terms of our teacher training and professional development. This week, we have administration for doing health trainings with medication and insulin administration, special education meeting today. Tomorrow, more curriculum instruction assessments, local alternative assessments, and we'll look at through the new walkthrough tool that I talked about during our several school board meetings. And then we're also looking at our crisis response plan, our building safety, and our also technology safety. And finally, all of our teachers at all three schools, we're looking at mental health in the classroom. And Ms. Teagle is going to work on that and provide information for our teachers. So we're balancing a lot of very important professional development, but also we're really trying to make sure that the teachers have the time in their classrooms to do what they need to do to get set up, work with their teammates, work with each other to get school up and running. But I think we're in a good place at this point in time.
Okay.
I have a question about the crisis plan. Are those actually exercised at the different schools?
Well, we do the lockdown drills, we do the fire drills, tornado drills, so all those exercises, we do those with the students. But of course, before that happens, the principals work with the teachers to make sure that they know exactly where to be for that. And then also in terms of reunification and communication, we work with different groups of folk and personnel in the schools, including our SROs, to help to make sure that our schools are safe.
Excellent.
I have a question too. In addition to the weapons detection that are at the schools, do the classrooms have any door devices that keep doors closed?
They do now, and we have electronic locks in our classrooms, and we're working towards to make sure that all of our classrooms have those electronic locks with fobs. And we're going to be talking with the teachers about what those protocols are. With Dustin, Mr. Harris, myself, and the rest of the SROs, we all believe that a locked classroom door is the best defense. So that is our call to all teachers to make sure that it's not propped open, and that actually students will have to knock to get into the classroom. So that's our plan and that's our protocol as we move forward this year.
I just want to clarify though, the keyless entry, we were able to get that installed at the middle and high school in classrooms, and we've got some funding left from that grant. We'll be applying for additional grant money, or I think we've got some that we can get it done and completed at the elementary. Until then though, the practice at the elementary is to keep doors locked until they get the fob upgrades also.
Doors at the elementary also have little buzzers, little doorbells,
Doorbells.
which are really a good addition.
Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. MES standard base grading.
And Mrs. Daniel is here to present that information to you this evening. Which I believe you all have in your, before you start, I think it's in your packet because I don't know how well you can see the board over there.
And I try to keep some of the information in the presentation for you simplified, and I'm going to add a little more detail for you. So I'll take you back a few years to 2020 when we experienced COVID. And during that time, we had students learning virtually at home. We then transitioned to a hybrid model, and what we found was the traditional grading scale was really not giving us the data we needed to monitor students' progress towards mastering standards. It wasn't a continuum. What we knew was there was a lot that a lot of kids did not know. And essentially that's all traditional was giving us. So we felt the need to make a shift to standards-based grading, which standards-based grading historically has occurred in the primary grade levels. The difference for us was it was happening, but it wasn't necessarily aligned to the standards, and what data was being used to support that wasn't really concrete. So we worked on adjusting K to 5, where you would have a standards-based report. If you'll go to the next slide for me.
Your clicker.
Oh, do I have the clicker?
Let's
Never
see.
mind, sorry,
And it
Steve.
should work for you, Ms. Daniel.
Okay. So reporting student progress at the elementary school from 2020, once we kind of started into COVID, through last school year, standards-based grading, it was aligned to the standards of learning. So whatever standards were being implemented for that content area, students and teachers reported on specifically each strand, and that's the information that students received. There were a few caveats to that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in barriers and some of the highlights. The reporting reflected the students' most recent progress towards mastery of the standards. So traditionally, I'm going to use third grade for a reference, and I'm going to use specifically SOL 3.1, which focuses on number sense for students. And within that, students have to be able to recognize place and value of numbers. They have to be able to compare numbers, and they have to be able to round numbers. So you would receive, say in the first 9 weeks, you would assess that as a teacher. A child may receive maybe a B at that point, maybe they failed it, maybe they got an A, and that was it. You moved on. You may have continued to provide some instruction, but as far as what was reported to parents, it stopped right there. So we know, okay, that child by the end of the school year may actually be doing this with 90% accuracy, but at the first 9 weeks when I was testing it as a teacher, they were only doing it at 70% accuracy. 70% was what was captured on their report card for the year. So it did not focus on a continuum of their learning. So in the shift to standards-based, it allowed us to then report as the year went on, where are they in their learning now? So it reports their progress towards mastery of the standards. Standards-based reporting also gives teachers more information because it tells you specifically what standard is a child excelling at or where do they need additional support instructionally. So now that we've been into this a few years, through teacher feedback and parent feedback, we've noticed that it definitely has some benefits to it, but there's been some barriers. So our team felt the need to come back together and take that information into consideration. We did this in the spring before school let out. We brought a team together and we went through the process of identifying what are the barriers based on our current reporting system and what are highlights, what's really working well for us. This is things that we've heard through teachers and parents. So one of the barriers that was identified was understanding of a student's progress towards mastering the standards of learning. When I reference the place and value and comparing and rounding numbers, a child at the beginning of the year, based on what they were introduced to, may have demonstrated that they were mastering place and value. As the year goes on, that child may now have more place values to go through, so it may have been the tens at the beginning of the year, and now they're going through the hundreds. It may have added in comparing, and it may have added in rounding. And now that child may not be mastering that skill. They may be progressing towards mastery, but for a parent to see a child go from an M to a P, there was confusion. They didn't understand, well, at the beginning of the year, my kid mastered it, and now they're progressing, they've gone backwards. So there's some confusion with that. The student transitioned to a traditional grading scale for our kids going from the elementary to the middle school. So from parents and students, we've actually heard that transition of, okay, now I'm in the middle school and I'm getting an A and a B and I don't understand what happened between elementary and here, that disconnect was a barrier. We also noticed that some of the standards that our students were providing instruction and we're monitoring their progress are not actually something you can assign a traditional grade to. Some of them are observed. For example, a lot of their citizenship skills, the ability for them to problem solve, reason, make connections, those aren't things that you're gonna grade. They're observations you're gonna make and we need to report on that, and our current reporting system doesn't allow for that. Some of the highlights though, is it does inform parents and instructional staff about understanding their progress towards the standards, their ability to master or meet the expectation. It does also allow for student growth and a continuum of student learning. One of the things we heard from teachers is it allows kids to really know where their gaps are in learning and for them to set goals because they have more information about what we're working on. It also aligns to and it meets state expectations for a K-3 achievement record. So we are required by the Department of Education for our students K-3 to have a record of their progress towards mastering the standards. What happened traditionally before this, that was still in place, but what was happening is at the end of the year, after everything was taught, teachers would then sit at the end of the year and they would do these portfolios, and in this portfolios, they would mark off where a child was with each standard. And what we heard from some of our teachers were, I'm having a hard time really recalling where my children are in every single standard, so some of this is subjective, and I'm also trying to quickly get it done before I get out for the summer and get everything else done. So we found that this allows our Power School system to accumulate data throughout the year, so it's the most accurate data. So based on that information, we made some revisions to our reporting for the upcoming school year, and these are the key revisions. For K-2, we looked at maintaining a true standards-based grading system, but revising so that some of the key reporting categories and information is what parents see. We found that some of the language was a little too much for parents to understand all of the individual pieces, so we tried to make the main standards the focus point. For K-5, all grade levels, we've integrated reporting of observed standards. So if it is problem solving or citizenship skills, we can still report on that, but those are observed standards that are available so parents know how their child's progressing with that. For grades 3 to 5, we looked at adding in a traditional grading scale as well. So when a parent gets a child's report card for 3rd through 5th grade, they will have a report on where a child is doing as far as progression of the standards, their understanding, but they'll also have a letter grade that aligns to the rest of the division's traditional letter grades, the 10-point scale. So they'll know, okay, in math, I've got a B this 9 weeks, but underneath I can see all of the standards that we've been taught and where I am specifically in progress towards mastering the standards. And then we looked at changing our reporting of the standards just a little bit with the scale. So that mastery word presented a barrier for us in general, because I think once we put the word mastery out there, once you master something, I think sometimes it has the mindset that you can't go backwards. In reality, there's a lot that we never master in life. We may be meeting the expectation at that time, but we never truly master it because there's always an opportunity for growth. So we changed the mastery to meet expectations. So at this time in your learning, if you have an 80 to 100%, you're meeting the expectation for that standard. Confusion was with satisfactory and progressing, so we got rid of satisfactory and we just put progressing. So if you are falling between a 60 to 90%, you're demonstrating that you're progressing towards understanding that standard. And then limited understanding remained below 60%, you're demonstrating limited understanding of the standard at this time. So this is information, again, we had a group come together and our parents have been great about communicating information over the past few years about some of the barriers and highlights for them. So I took that into consideration to make some updates. And this is the final product that we'll go through with our staff tomorrow during the curriculum instruction and assessment update that Dr. Bishop shared.
Okay. Questions?
So if you're not meeting expectations, is there a letter grade that corresponds to that?
So if you are, no, you'll get a traditional grade. So if we're looking at 3rd through 5th grade, when a teacher grades an assessment, they will still have a traditional grade, but they'll also be able to tag the standards with it in the grade book. And beside that standard, it will do its own formula to convert and give you an MP or LU. That's the percentages for the standard specifically that shows what is your progress towards that. So you may be meeting expectations towards a progress. And we felt pretty comfortable if you want to equate it to a traditional scale, a B and an A would be meeting expectation. So they do align as far as an 80 to 100 on a traditional scale is a B or an A, and that's meeting where you would be at that time. Progressing being that 60 to 79%, which would equate to a D or a C, you're progressing towards it, and then the F, or limited understanding, would both be below the 60%.
I think that should clarify it.
Okay.
Should.
Anything else? Thank you. All right, next we have cell phone protocol.
Cell phones, back to cell phones. So as we discussed in our work session earlier this evening, we are updating our protocols to ensure a cell phone-free learning environment. On July 9th, the governor issued Executive Order 33 calling on the establishment of cell phone-free education to promote the health and safety of Virginia's K-12 students. Prior to that order, I should say, our administrative team was already looking at updating our protocols for the year. We did distribute a survey to stakeholders to gain feedback on a proposed update. We, as I shared earlier, received a large, about 93 responses, which for us is a large number, probably in any other survey that I've done. Overall, the majority, I would say 2/3 of it, it wasn't a yes or no type survey, or do you agree or not agree. It was, here's the protocols we are proposing, please provide your feedback. The ones that decided to share, I agree, or maybe I don't agree fully. Of that, 2/3 of the respondents were 100% in agreement with the protocols. There were some questions about, or some suggestions on use at other times. There was some feedback on students needing to use them as a medical device or things like that, which we, as you're aware, we've talked through those things in our, during our work session. Also questions about coaches and communication there. We feel like we've established some things to put in place where coaches are going to communicate with parents and schools are going to communicate directly with announcements and things to students. Why is this a topic right now? Like, it's not us, it's the entire Commonwealth, and really it's a national issue in that there's more and more research that shows the use specifically of social media, which kids are accessing on their phones, are causing a lot of negative impacts to both mental and emotional well-being. Plus, we want our learning environments to be strictly learning environments, and the intention to be on the classroom. We want to minimize distractions. We want to promote teaching and learning. So I'm going to share the protocols that we decided on in the work session, and those will be communicated out to families tomorrow, and they'll be added to our student handbook. I want to also just advise everyone that we're still waiting on draft guidance from VDOE from listening sessions that they held across the state. That draft guidance will be posted to VDOE's website on the 15th. And then final guidance will be completed on VDOE's website by September 16th, with the expectation from the executive order that school boards put into their policies or protocols cell phone-free education and what that looks like in the schools. So I say all this to say it could be we get some different direction or additional guidance from the state that will come back to you to update before students come back from the winter break. But the following protocols will be shared out with families, and that in all of our schools, cell phones will be off and away. It looks a little bit different at each level, and the state recognizes that, and also will be sharing guidance that looks a little bit different maybe at each level. At the elementary school, they are off and away the entire time they're in the building. At the middle school, they are off and away, allowed to be kept in a purse or backpack or bag. At the high school, off and away, but that will look like similar to what's going on now in the classrooms where they're deposited into a cell phone holder. But again, the practice will be off and away, and that's the entire day. That'll be from the time they enter the school building until the time they exit the school building. They will, right now, use will be allowed on buses and at after-school activities and such. For consequences, again, remember this is a topic that we discussed, and we did have some feedback from the survey that we tried to address, in that the first time a student has hands on a cell phone and it's on and it's being in use, will go to the office The student will be allowed to pick it up at the end of the day, and parent will be contacted to be advised that the student has violated this protocol, and this will be registered and logged as a first offense. If it happens again, the cell phone goes back to the office, and the parent will be required to pick the cell phone up during the day, during school hours. If it does happen again after that, the cell phone will not be allowed in use or not be allowed in a classroom at all. And decisions will have to be made at that point between the parent and the administration, as if the phone is totally left at home, or if the phone is brought to school but is signed into the office every morning and signed out of the office every afternoon. These consequences are similar to what we are practicing now in the middle school and in the high school. So again, we will put this together to communicate out tomorrow so that families are aware. It will be added to our handbook as one of our signature forms, and we've ensured that our schools will be, on the first day of school, first thing, reiterating to our students what these protocols are and how they will be followed no matter where the student is located.
Okay.
So that is all I have on the cell phone policy update.
All right. Next, we have public comment.
Dawn Moore, Saluda.
Good evening, my name is Dawn Moore, I'm in the Saluda District. We moved up because it's very hard to hear everybody but Mr. Reed and Dr. Bishop from the back. We cannot hear you with these new microphones.
Okay.
As you all know, you all were invited, and I thank Ms. Kim Bagby for coming on behalf of the Y. And I superly thank, and everybody on the committee thanks, Ms. Fleet for coming. We talk about engagement, we talk about building relationships, and for not one board member, and I doesn't matter to me why, when, how, what, nothing, to not come for the third year in a row to the back to school bash. The whole committee was very disappointed. The whole committee. We have so many parents and children there. You want to build? That's the time. The resource officers were all there. The kids were talking to them. Of course, all the little kids are running to Mr. Deputy White. But that is the time you want to capture that moment where we're not having an issue at school, so we want to come here and, of course, fuss, 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 fuss. That's the time to build that relationship where you can have the parent feel comfortable enough to call you. Well, for the third year in a row, Ms. Fleet, we thank her. She volunteers, she helps, and she is there, and she is committed. Out of this whole school district, for only one person for 3 years in a row to come, we're just so disappointed, and we don't know what to do to encourage you or engage you to come, because I feel it's important, because the only time you see most of our parents is when they have a problem. You want to build, engage, you got to do it outside the restricted walls. You got to do it outside the intimidation, because when parents come into the office, a lot of them are intimidated, but they're coming in there to fight for their kids. So I'm just really sad, and the rest of the committee was very disappointed that nobody else was there. Thank you.
Mr. Michael Nez, Harmony Village. Thank you.
Public input now closed. Next, we have superintendent's report.
Yes, so I have a few things to update you on. The first of which is a partnership and a subscription that we are moving into this year with the Cook Center for Human Development. They're a nonprofit organization that brings together programs and partnerships that they've used, researched, in order to demonstrate effectiveness in creating human connections that are vital for strong mental health. They recognize that there's a piece or a gap that needs to be filled for needs that families have, and there's not enough staff on the mental health side of things, certainly in schools, that can help with that. So we are contracting with them to be able to bring some supports, again, to help support student mental health. Specifically, it will be work with families and educators, or educators can join in this, any caregivers. Part of it is through a website, parentguidance.org, which is an online platform. It's designed to assist those that care for children. Again, addressing mental health, wellness, and self-care. And so there will be online availability for lots of the resources that I'm going to mention. Some of the other things that are added in the subscription that we're partnering with them in is parents or staff members can sign up for one-on-one parent coaching with cognitive behavioral health coaches, and that they've got their own person that they work with. It is completely, information's not shared with the schools. The only data that the schools will get is that someone from Middlesex County is registered to receive this support, and then just some data on what that support looks like, that there were so many text messages or so many Zoom calls or that, and so that we can evaluate at the end of it how many families or educators we're supporting in that, but nothing else is shared. There's on-demand parenting sessions that are taught by licensed therapists that can be accessed through the website. There's an Ask a Therapist frequently updated question and answer forum. There are multiple webinars that parents can access throughout the month. I have the schedule for September now, and some of the activities or some of the webinars include establishing healthy boundaries, emotional regulation and recognizing what's wrong, your child's anxiety, your active child and ADHD, bullying, stop the cycle, effects of screen time and children's mental health, ABCs of substance use and vaping, school avoidance, and there more. So that's one of the, each month we'll be providing that information to parents so that they can sign up for those their live webinar sessions. Again, they will be able to sign up as an anonymous person. That's not information that comes back to the school division. We'll just get some data on this many people from Middlesex signed up, and so that we know what areas or what topics parents are needing the most support in. There's another piece of it that's some professional development for our staff. That's something we'll be adding in during the year as we determine what maybe the need is and when the right time is to add it. So again, all of these topics and coaching sessions and such will be at no cost to families and educators. So we're excited about that. There will be information at all of our open houses this week, flyers and posters sharing that information, and we'll start that campaign to share it out so that families are aware and our counselors are able to work with families on that. So that, I think I'm very excited about adding that to this year. Convocation we had last week. It was great. We had a game show theme. We all came in with Price is Right name tags, and we went through a Family Feud session up here on the stage where our schools and departments competed against each other, all school themed. We had prizes, we had giveaways. We took our division photos, we took our group photos. Our nutrition department served a wonderful Mediterranean lunch to all of us. I've got to give a shout out to Kim Bagby and Jessica Tuning, who did a lot of the organizing and the planning and the decorating, even balloons falling from the ceiling, and I still see balloons that are still up there that may fall at any given time now. So very positive feedback we've gotten from our staff. Yes, we went over our strategic plan some, and we hit some of our priorities and some of our successes from last year. We shared some overall data, and our schools are fully accredited. We heard that it was just the right mix of, we're excited to be back and have fun, and you've celebrated us, and here's some things we know we're going to work on. This week, we're rolling into open house on Thursday. That's from 4 to 7 at all of our schools, as Mr. Reed announced, and then the first day of school is Monday the 19th. I did share last month, I gave an overview of student assessment data, and I said that I would be back to present more disaggregated data, and that would likely be in September. And I just wanted to let you know that that is still on the schedule for September. A more disaggregated data of all of our assessments that we completed in the spring. And then in September, we will also have our student representative as the school board representative identified, and that person will join us at the September meeting. So those are all of the updates I have for my report this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any old business? Any new business? Okay. All right, discussion and new business, on deleting one of the public comments. We had discussion, we did have discussion with VSBA on this. And, we told them we had two, and it was recommended that we go to one. So what is the pleasure of the board?
I would take their advisement under consideration that we do go down to one, and I would say that we do it at the beginning of the meeting. So if people want to come in and do public comments, and if they don't want to stay for the meeting, they have the option to leave versus having to stay all the way through it. And if we have it at just the end.
Okay. All right, so will you put that in form of a motion?
I move that we strike the second public comment and just keep the first one after the announcements.
Okay.
Second.
Moving properly second, any question? All in favor? Motion is so carried. All right, now we will go into closed meeting. All right.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
In pursuant of the Code of Virginia, the board will go into closed session to discuss personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters. May I have a motion to go into closed session? I have that.
Second.
Moving properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're now into closed session. I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. In pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board has discussed personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters during closed session. Matters discussed in closed session have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action items and information items. Member, please respond by roll call.
Dr. Burnett,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. McMurtry,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved proper second in question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr.
Well-
Chair, I would like to add, regarding the earlier conversation regarding public comment moving to the beginning of the meeting, that we also limit each speaker to 3 minutes without the ability to pass that time on to anyone else.
Okay. Board. Okay, that's in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, you choose either one you want. Okay.
2 seconds, is that 4?
Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Okay. Now, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're now adjourned.